Hi, everyone. We want to talk about grief as being a limiting negative belief. And I know it could be hard to accept this because grief, of course, feels heartbreakingly real. We understand that. We're not saying that you're not feeling grief. What we're wanting you to consider, however, is that grief, like everything, anything we experience in the 3D world, is really the result of our thoughts upon the subject. Thoughts are what create emotion. So clearly, if someone we love has left the physical world, that is a big shock. It's a big shock to look around and realize they're gone physically, right? I want to make clear that they're not gone in truth because they're not their body only. They're a spirit. You and I are spirits, and we will always remain a spirit. We're just dropping our physical bodies. If we cross over, that's all that's happening. We're dropping the physical body and we're returning to being fully a spirit. But while we're in a body, we still are a spirit. The greater part of ourselves remains in the spirit world always, and we're only expressing a part of our consciousness into this particular life, into this body. And so that's what's happened to our loved one. They have let go of the physical body that they once were in, and they're now completely in spirit. This is why we can still be in touch with them. This is why a medium can communicate with them, why you and I can communicate with them, right? So, in truth, they're not gone. What you are up against, which is understandable, is the limiting belief that you have that they're gone, that they're because you see no evidence of them being present, right? They're not physically in a body. So you have to shift your perspective now and be able to and perceive them on that unseen level. That's the only challenge you face. Really, it's what it is. And any belief you have that that connection that's now non-physical is somehow inferior to. I would challenge you to see it as not less than, but just different, just different. And in fact, there's so many things that they can do for us being non-physical than they ever could when they're in a body. Certainly, of course, if you're used to having, let's say, especially if it's a partner who was once there able to help you physically, right? Like do chores, help you with errands, help you with taking care of the kids if you have children and all of that. Of course, you're going to miss the lack of that physical support because clearly they aren't able to do that anymore. But it's up to us to really look at the bigger picture of how can they help me in other ways? Because there's so much they can do to help us and want to do to help us. One thing that they can do is help us to heal. Many of them do their best to help us physically and emotionally heal. That's one big thing. But we have to go back to looking at our beliefs about their crossing and that this now is a situation that we, of course, don't prefer. Of course, we'd rather have them be here in the physical. So, what I suggest to you, though, your first challenge is to make peace with the fact that they're not in a body anymore, that they are non-physically focused and still accessible to us, but that that can be, I don't want to say better than having them here physically, but just as extraordinary, just as full of love and support, just in another way, okay? So it requires us to examine our beliefs about the afterlife, about what this relationship could be through the veil. And that might be, of course, a completely different thing for you to look at because you've never been in this position before of considering that you could continue a relationship with a loved one through the veil. That takes a whole different reframing of your beliefs and assumptions about reality. And this is no small thing. And it's not for most people going to be an easy thing. I don't want to say it's always going to be difficult because then that would be programming you to believe that this has to be difficult. It's as difficult as your beliefs allow it to be. If you are not yet at a place of acceptance that this is what happened. I know that sounds strange to some of you. You go, well, of course it happened. What choice do I have? I have to accept it. But I've encountered a lot of people who are still pushing against this. They're still upset that this happened. Either they're angry at God, not that it's God who made this happen. It's really the soul of the person who crossed, who chose this, not their conscious physical mind, okay? But on a soul level, all death is a choice. Technically, all death you could say is suicide in the sense that the soul chooses, not the ego, personality, self. We would never choose that consciously. Pretty much very few of us would choose it consciously. Some of us might, but by and large, the personality self of your loved one didn't choose this, but their soul chose it. Okay, so if you're pushing against it, like this shouldn't have happened, or you feel you could have saved them, or it wasn't their time, I want to assure you that death comes to everyone, and it's always the soul's choosing. There can be interventions, for example, that have happened for people where the other side came through to prevent someone from dying, or where someone from the other side actually literally could breathe life into someone. That happened to my friend Sean, whose nephew breathed life into him when he was about to die, and literally breathed into him, and he could feel his nephew breathe oxygen into his lungs, and Sean came back. So the other side can do that if it's appropriate and relevant to the soul's experience. And ultimately, it's the soul, the higher self, that's in charge. Okay, so we have to start to look at things a little differently when we're talking about the afterlife, and especially when we're talking about interdimensional relationships. Everyone's relationship through the veil is going to be unique, right? Unique. There's no one size fits all. There's no basic roadmap or timeline from this. The loved one on the other side is unique as a spirit, as a soul too, but as a spirit, let's differentiate that. The spirit is, let's just say, the part of the soul expressed into this particular life that you shared with your loved one, whether that's a parent or a partner or a friend, whoever that is, right? They have a unique spirit that interacted with you in this life and is still there on the other side as their spirit. That's why you will recognize them, because they still have their personality, they still have their quirks, some of their traits. They're an evolved version of themselves now because they've crossed over, but they're hanging on to their some of main personality traits, because otherwise you and I wouldn't recognize our loved ones, right? We'd go, who are they? Are they some enlightened being? No. When spirit crosses over, they are still themselves. They are still at their level of awakening of consciousness. You're still evolving. They're still growing. You don't stop growing when you cross over. You just now have dropped the ego side of yourself. So you're not fearful. You don't have any limiting beliefs. You basically understand that you're source energy, but you're still learning. You're still growing. You're not like an ascended being just because you died. It doesn't work that way. Everyone's working and evolving through lifetimes, both can be here in this earth plane or in other dimensions, other realities, other planets, etc. That's a whole other topic of conversation. But that's why I want you to begin to look at, is it necessary for us to grieve if we understand that they're non-physical, that they're still here? that we can communicate. Of course, it's going to be challenging for you in the beginning because you may not have much evidence of this. You may have been receiving signs. You may have had direct contact of some sort, maybe experienced them physically even. I know people who have seen their loved one, felt them hug them, all manner of contact. Okay. But in spite of that, you notice if you've had that contact or had signs, you still struggle to really believe that this is possible. And what you need to understand is what you're up against is the collective belief system, which basically negates this, which basically will tell you, as most people out there will tell you, that this is impossible or you're crazy, you're making it up. So you're up against that. So you can't expect this to be really easy to shift into this acceptance, this belief, and to get to a point of knowing with absolute certainty that your loved ones are here and you can perceive them. This is going to take time. But if you don't believe it's possible or you have a lot of doubt or fear, you're going to struggle with this because your beliefs that you were kind of programmed with by your ancestors to some degree. Some cultures, of course, are more accepting of the truth that the soul lives on and they maintain connection and communication with their ancestors through the veil. Different cultures do that. Yours might not, though. And so you might be struggling with this because in your family lineage, there could be a lot of negative beliefs about the afterlife. And with other people, with their family lineage, it's more open, right? So it depends. That's why I say this journey through the veil to connect with a loved one, whether it's a partner or other family member or friend, can be challenging because you have different beliefs that are going to have to be addressed and cleared if they're limiting and negative. Okay. Some of you are more open, or maybe you're raised to be more open-minded, and so it's not going to be as difficult. Also, the loved one across the veil, they vary in their ability to project themselves. They're not all up to speed with that, and that's why Alan works with those who are in our academy with their partners, with their loved ones. He works with them through the veil and helps them to learn how to project more strongly. And that's why you'll hear a lot of our academy members sharing their experiences and saying that their connections have grown stronger, their contact is increasing. And that can happen for anybody, by the way. You don't have to be in our academy to experience this, but I know because we're meeting regularly, and that means that the loved ones in the spirit world are meeting at the same time. There are literally two classes happening when we meet in the academy. The other side is meeting, Alan is meeting with loved ones who are across the veil, and then I'm working, well, he and I are working with the people that we are on in meetings with in our Zoom lives that we do. So I know that contact is increasing for people that we work closely with, and it can increase for you too. Again, you don't have to be in our academy. That's just a way for us to give you more support and work with you more. I want to say one-on-one, although I don't really work with everybody one-on-one, but what Spirit has shown me, and Alan has shown me too, is that in a non-physical level, especially in dream time, we're working with our students. And I've had several of them confirm that for me and tell me that we showed up or I showed up in their dreams and that I'm talking to them, coaching them. So I know that's happening too. So I say this to you because I have right now after 3 years so much evidence that the contact is ongoing, that it can increase, that really the only thing that is going to make a difference in any of this, and anything in your life really, is your beliefs. Rather than call it the law of attraction, or even like those of you who follow Neville Goddard, who's kind of considered the godfather of manifestation teachings. He called it the law of assumption. Assumption is really just beliefs that you have, the assumptions about what's real. I think you could actually more simply call it the law of belief, that your thoughts, which are your beliefs that you predominantly hold, are what create outcomes, create your experience. I know because I've worked with so many people at this point that it's really their thoughts, their predominant thoughts, that either are hindering them or helping them make direct contact. And that's why if you have really embracing grief and you feel that you have to grieve, which, by the way, it's not uncommon for people to be reluctant to give up their grief, as nonsensical as that might sound, because they can have a subconscious or even conscious belief that if they're not grieving and having sadness about the loss of a loved one, that they're not honoring them. There is a perception, an assumption, a belief that grief is how we honor the dead. And you could say, that's kind of makes sense from a human perspective, that we want to honor people by showing them how we feel. But I know from talking to the other side that that's really the last thing they want. They want us to celebrate that they have been returned home, that they have kind of, let's say, graduated from the Earth School, which is a really, really tough school to graduate from. And yeah, their learning is continuing on the other side. But they are met with a party when they cross over. They know that we're grieving the physical loss of them. But if we could, override that, transcend that grief about the loss of the physical, and see the whole experience, see where they are from the broader perspective, we would experience our grief lessening, perhaps even clearing altogether. I know that when my parents died, they both died, they died about, I want to say about 7 years apart. But when my mom passed, I didn't feel grief at all. I felt peace with her because I knew that she was finally freed of her dementia. She had Alzheimer's. And so I felt nothing but joy and peace for her, and relief. Actually, I could feel her relief at being released from the bondage of her broken brain. So I only felt joy for her. I could feel her joy. I was allowed myself to not feel the loss, but to just tap into her emotion. And all I could feel was joy and gratitude for the help that I had given her, because saw me as her spiritual advisor. It was so strange. My mother was my number one fan. She was with me from the moment I opened up. She supported my spiritual path, especially my role as a teacher. And she always saw herself as a student of mine. So she was reluctant to go because she was afraid she couldn't stay in touch with me. And I knew I could stay in touch with her, so I was not sad to let her go, and I still talk to my mom quite often. So, and when my father passed, I felt jubilation. I could feel him, feel his release from his body, that although he didn't have dementia, was in bad pain with his knees and other health issues. So he was ready to go. And when he passed, the morning after he passed, I connected with him, and I could feel this ecstasy he was in, and just so happy that he was again released into being spirit again, right? So I'd never felt grief for him at all, and I've been in touch with my father. Alan, the reason I had grief about Alan is because there was so much that we didn't get to experience. So there was a lot of remorse and regret about what we didn't get to have. And I knew I could stay in touch with him. I didn't know the degree I'm in touch with him now, but I knew that he wasn't going anywhere, that he'd be on the other side. I just didn't know that it was possible to maintain the relationship through the veil. And I'm still learning the different levels of this. We're still learning this, especially in the academy. We're exploring it with all of our students. And I look forward to holding symposiums where our academy members share their experiences, because I'm learning as much from them as they are from us. So we're going into like a really uncharted territory that few people have gone together as a group. Okay, maybe individually they've done it, but sharing it with the group makes a big difference because this is such a new thing and you don't have a lot of people in your life. Well, I do, but you probably don't have people in your life that you can turn to who completely understand, support, agree, or even are sharing the journey with you. So that's what helps shift that limiting belief about grief. It still can pop up because it's such a prevalent core belief on the planet, right? That when somebody dies, that's it. That maybe they become nothing. How well, this is ridiculous because once energy is created, it can never be destroyed. And consciousness exists eternally. So that's absurd. But where do they go, right? Like where what happened to them? If they cannot be destroyed, if there is no such thing as death, then where are they? Well, that's what you're learning with us here. And that's what we go in even deeper in the academy because this is not a simple subject. This is something that even with people in our academy that have been studying with us for a year, we're at about a year now that we've been teaching. Even then, you could hear us talk about these subjects and just hear it on one level, but you don't really believe it. It's not really settling down to the core of you where you just know this as a truth. That's why this takes kind of continual like immersion in the subject, which is what we do in the academy. Continual like coaching, and we work with people, and you will hear us work with somebody who's really blocked and hasn't been able to let go or make peace of the fact that their loved one is gone. Like they're still angry, like this shouldn't have happened, or they shouldn't have died, or what have you. And that's going to create suffering because if you're focused on the past, and this is why grief never feels good. When we focus on the past and when we're grieving, we usually are, right? We're focused on they're not here, or we're looking back at our memories of them. And then it's painful to think of the past because they are not there in the past. You're thinking of the past in the moment right here, correct? Because all you have is right here, right now, this moment where I'm talking to you right now. That's it. This is the now. That's all you have. You can't be in the past. You can't be in the future. You only can be here now, correct? So you're here right now and you're thinking right now about the past. Let's say their last Christmas they shared with you. Your your mind is a time machine. It can go back to the past, think of the memory, but you can only do that here and now, right? Because you only have now, correct? So when you do that, you're not connecting with your loved one who is right here, right now, maybe standing right now. I know Alan's standing right here by me. If I think back on the past, and I think the thought, oh, well, that happened last year and you're not here now. I'm going to feel the pain of that because that's not true because he's right here. I'm just thinking a thought that separated me from him being here. And that's why it hurts. My emotional guidance system, which basically gives me feedback as to whether the thought I'm thinking is true or not from the perspective of my higher self. You could say the perspective of your spirit, your soul, same thing. That's not the higher truth because they're right here. So if I think that he's gone, it's going to hurt because it's not true. He's not gone. If I think that I've lost Alan, same thing. I'm going to feel the pain of that because it's not true. Now, when I think that thought now, I know it's not true. So it doesn't land. I don't feel any negative emotion because I know that's not true. You think that thought, you will feel pain. That indicates that you think that's true. But the negative emotion is also telling you, wait, that's a lie from the perspective of source, from the perspective of your higher self. It's not true at all. He's right here. Nobody dies. They're not gone. You are so powerful, you can choose to believe they're gone. And then you're going to suffer from that, let's say, misperception, because now you believe that and you can't perceive them because you just said they're gone. Well, if they're gone, if you believe they're gone, how are you going to pick up on them? How are you going to sense them? Do you see what I mean by this? So beliefs create everything. If you want to have contact would help if you start shifting your belief about grief and stop for a time, not forever, stop for a time, reminiscing and going down memory lane. We just had a whole class with the academy recently about that. I advise people to not think about the past and focus on creating new experiences and memories in the now. So if this is your first Christmas without your loved ones, whoever they are, then create new traditions with them in this new experience of being in having this interdimensional relationship. Create some new, let's say, Christmas celebrations for them. Maybe create a playlist of their favorite songs. Maybe get a special place setting at the dinner table if you're having a family celebration that has as just for them, whatever it is, whatever you're guided to do, because the more you live your life as if they are here, guess what? The more contact you're likely to have because you're believing that they're here. It's your ego conscious mind that is so terrified that this could be real that it's going to throw up really a lot of doubt and fear or tell you things like, well, if you believe they're here and you can't see them, then you must be crazy. That's the voice that's telling you you're making it up or that is throwing up thoughts of doubt. You understand? It's not doesn't mean it's true. It just means that's your fear that's coming up for you. It's interesting that humans tend to pretty much everybody tends to believe the negative thoughts that pop up like that, like, "This is crazy. You're nuts," you know? It's easy to believe that, and it seems to be harder for a lot of people to believe positive thoughts that come up, like, "This is good. This is all gonna work out. You're doing the right thing. This is perfect." Well, start to listen to the positive whisperings that come into your mind, because those are coming from a higher place. Those are coming from your higher self. They could be coming from your loved one on the other side, could be coming from your guides. But I promise you, wherever it's coming from, it's a higher perspective and a benevolent source that is projecting those positive thoughts and comments and messages, okay? Only the conscious mind, the human self, limited consciousness that you are, it can't help but be, is going to spew thoughts of negativity and worry and doubt and fear. You have to learn to ignore that voice. Okay, that is your conscious physical mind. It's programmed for survival. It's going to be worried about you going down this path that few people have traversed before. Of course, it's going to throw up confusion and doubt at times at you. You have to know where that's coming from and why that is not the voice of truth. That is the voice of your inner programming that you've taken on from society, your parents, your friends, um, people around you that you just decided to accept. Well, part of spiritual awakening requires us to evaluate our beliefs and say, well, is this really true for me? Maybe it was true for me before, but do I still believe it? Does it feel like the truth? Does it resonate as the truth? Truth feels solid, it feels positive, even if it's not pleasant. There is something to be gained from any challenge that we face. There's growth that's going to come from you pursuing this relationship through the veil. It's not necessarily going to be easy. And I reluctantly say that because I actually now believe that it doesn't have to be hard because I've met some people recently who have been astonished to find that and I have to confess these are mostly people in our academy that they're astonished to find that once they really dove into understanding this with our help that their grief just really went away, not maybe completely, but wow, it really went down because they're building their positive true belief that they can have this connection and therefore they're having the connection. So you can't expect to grieve, forever. Okay, you have to go through grief for a period, don't get me wrong. We don't want you to repress your emotions, but because you have to process them. Process just means feeling. But at some point, it'll lessen to a place where you feel more hopeful, and when you're at that place where the grief isn't so strong, so constant, now you're on the other side, and you're gonna be able to more easily have this connection on a steady basis. Up until then, it could be rather infrequent, it really depends because, everybody's different. So so contact can be made by them from the other side. If they're really strong, they could possibly overcome the wall of grief that you have up. But if the grief is really strong, yeah, it's going to be really difficult for them to come through. You're offering a different vibration when you're heavy in grief. But it doesn't mean that you should suppress that, because you do have to get that out. You have to get that out of your system. Somebody says, Pam and Ellen, I had a terrible migraine once I called on both of you. You both showed up. I saw this image, the two of you in white so quickly. I woke up fine then in the morning. Thank you. You're so welcome. And that's something I am so glad you experienced that. If you've read our book, those of you who read our book know that, Ellen and I are healers, and anyone's welcome to call on us for healing. We're going to do a lot more healing in our academy. Especially I've been called to do that. They have a lot of things planned for Academy that we haven't done, so I'm excited about that. Yeah. Grief, I know now, truly is just a belief system, and the less time we spend reminisce in the beginning again, looking at the past, especially if it makes you just grieve harder when you have think about the past. Okay, don't do that. If it makes you feel bad, don't do that. Okay. At some point, I promise you, you can get to the place where your grief is pretty much dissipated. And you can look at all of those photos, let's say, of the past, or ruminate about the past, think about the past and feel only joy. But until you're there, until you cross that threshold, don't go there. Don't go down memory lane. Don't go down and then feel sad about that. Focus on the now. Recently, when we were working with one of our clients who's in our academy as well, and we've done a lot of coaching with her in addition, her husband came through and it basically said, stay here, like I'm right here. He didn't want her to reminisce about the past, like about the anniversary of his death that came up. He said, be here, be here, be here, be. And of course they're going to say that. They're saying, like, why are you sad about my last birthday, or last Christmas, or whatever? Like, I'm right here. Don't forget, I'm right here. Talk to me right here. Be with me right here. Feel my presence right here. And so that's what we suggest you do, is don't look to the past. That's where the grief is going to swell up, because your body is the one that's grieving. That says, I don't have them physically. Your consciousness, your higher self, who you really are, your spirit self, knows, like, they're not their body, but your physical body is the one that's doing the grieving. If you can start shifting your belief about the afterlife and open to their presence here now as much as you can, and let go of the past and be focused here right now, it's going to go so much better for you. You're going to be able to perceive them and feel them more fully if you're focused really here and now. I cannot emphasize that enough. All your power is in the now. You dilute your spiritual power by focusing on the past. Okay, even 5 minutes ago, 5 seconds ago, for that matter. The more we are focused in the moment, the more energy we have to direct to this experiencing this relationship through the veil. I don't think that's hard to understand why that would be, because if we're distracted, if we're thinking about what we've got to make for dinner tomorrow, and then we're worrying about, the past because they're not no longer here physically, and we're bemoaning that fact, and we're remembering again, the last Christmas or something, then where energy is just fractured. It's just all over the place. How can we be with them in this new experience now if we're all over the place like that? We can't. It's just not going to work. So if you want contact and communication through the veil, you've got to be focused right here. I mentioned to my academy in the last, I think it was the last class, how I recalled that from the beginning, I always heard Alan saying, I'm right here. I'm right here. And I thought, okay, well, I know you're right here. Why do you keep telling me that? And it was his way of keeping me focused right here in the moment. Like, I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. And they literally are right here. There's no place else for them to go. So, so please really lean into that. Really feel into that. That is the truth. They're right here. They're just in another dimension. You can access that dimension. It's not as hard as you think. You can't go there and be there with them, but you can communicate from this dimension to that dimension. It's by raising your frequency, raising your vibration, following your guidance. That's a key thing we teach in the academy, which is a challenge for the average person to do, okay, to follow their guidance. We teach a lot about that. We're going to go even further into it next year. Because if you're not following your higher guidance, if you're not living from that place of your higher self, this journey is going to be very erratic. It may be very frustrating for you. We all have to go through a spiritual transformation in order to have these relationships. There's no other way around it. This is not about psychic development. That'll only get you so far. You really have to evolve and become who you truly are, which I would say Alan's saying to me, 90% of you aren't doing that. You don't even know what I'm talking about, probably. What we mean is that most of you are living right now from the perspective of your human ego self, not from your higher self. So you don't know what following your guidance is. Maybe it's happening randomly at times to you when you let it, but for most of you, you're not doing that. You don't know how to do that. Nobody taught you how to do that. That's what we teach. So that is really the key. And what I'm seeing with people that I work with is that those that are learning to trust their higher self, their guidance, and knowing that everything is falling into place synchronistically when we do that, okay, are having an easier time of this. This is not supposed to be a hard road to walk if the physical mind is not leading us. Okay. But for most people, that's what they're doing. And that's why this is going to be a stop and go kind of journey for them. For some people, it's going to be almost impossible if the physical mind, the ego physical mind, is used to being in full control. It doesn't like to give up control. And when people have spiritually transformative experiences through different ways, it can happen different ways, but when they have that, or even a near-death experience, the physical mind kind of gets wiped a bit. It loosens its control. And that's why those people go through profound change. They become different people. Not everyone becomes fully who they truly are, but they make progress in that direction. Okay, and that's why they come out of those experiences oftentimes being more psychic, having healing abilities, having different perspectives about life in general. They become more of who they really are. And that is what we are coaching people to do in our academy. To a lesser degree, we can help you with that in these lives. It just requires a lot more than just you listening to us live to do that. But we hope that you will find a way to do that if you don't join us in our academy, because that's really the way forward to have this relationship through the veil. So grief is, like everything else, experienced as a belief. If you believe your loved ones are gone forever, your grief will last probably for the rest of your time in a body, if that's your belief. That I've seen that happen sadly with so many people. I know people who've been grieving the loss of a child or a partner for, I don't know, 20, 30, 35 years. I think it's the longest I've seen. And you can continue to feel that. If you believe that, then that's the future you're going to create. Or you could open to the belief that grief is just an indication that, your body's missing them, and it will grieve and it will get used to this new experience, because your body can physically experience them, promise you, on another level. It's not 3D, not like this, right? Not touch, but you can physically feel them, their presence. But you can't get there if you don't believe that's possible. So belief is where we always have to start. It's everything. If you believe you can have direct communication and contact through the veil with someone, you can. Absolutely. Your thought is created in the spirit world automatically. It just takes time for it to show up in this physical world, so you can adjust that if you change your mind. If you decide you don't want that, you can't handle that right now. Also, okay, well, one thing Alan wants me to close with. This is something key that everybody needs to keep in mind. Your experiences in this 3D world, okay, your conscious mind obviously is engaged. I'm talking your conscious mind. I can't not talk to your conscious mind when I'm alive like this. But your subconscious is there also, and your unconscious. And the unconscious holds all the information, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the abilities, everything that you need to live this life you've chosen in this incarnation. It's all held for you in your unconscious. Your subconscious mind is, let's just say, the sort of the go-between, you could say the translator, is the part of you that brings what your conscious mind is ready to experience or perceive, but it's not going to give your conscious mind what it's not yet ready for. Okay, so it kind of is kind of the gatekeeper in that sense. And because nothing could be worse than for you to get a flood of information or an experience that your conscious mind is, because of its belief systems, remember, because of your existing belief system, it knows you could not handle if this experience came to you, or this understanding, this information came to you. Therefore, if we want this extraordinary relationship through the veil, we're going to have to look at our existing belief systems, because unless those change, the subconscious is not going to let through some experience, some information or knowledge that we could use to have this relationship, this experience, right? That is something that a lot of people don't take into account as to why certain things happen or don't happen for them. There is, let's just say, a higher intelligence at work here. Your higher self is really governing your experience from that perspective. So it's not going to let something happen to you that you really cannot handle, even if it seems when it happens that you can't handle it. It's happening because your subconscious says, she can handle this now. Let's let this in. Okay, we'll let this information in, let her have this experience. You are being supported and helped on a non-physical level, whether you want to call it your higher self, your soul, your spirit, your guides, your loved ones on the other side. It's all them. Let's just say they're all your team, including you. Okay, that's there, always operating, they've always got your back. Okay, our job is to really tweak our belief systems and know that we are holding beliefs that serve us, that empower us, that are true. And we know they're true if the belief makes us feel good. That's the barometer. That's how easy it is. Does this thought I'm holding, this belief I'm holding, does this make me feel good? Does it make me feel uplifted? Does it make me feel inspired? Does it fill me with love? Do I feel positive emotion when I ponder this belief or this thought? Then that is the truth from the perspective of our higher mind. And if that's the truth, then that belief is going to support us in our life. Okay, so believing that they're gone is not true. Believing we've lost them is not true. That's why those thoughts feel so terrible. Believing that you can't have this relationship through the veil is also going to feel terrible because that's not true. Anything is possible for you if it's relevant to your life. If it's relevant, then it can manifest. And pretty much, if you're here in our group, it means it's possible for you or you wouldn't be here because the universe is about synchronicity. Everything's happening in divine timing, your divine timing, not God's divine timing. Your timing is God's timing, okay? Your higher self's divine timing. So if you're here, it means it's possible for you. Is it guaranteed for you? No, because you've got to do the work. You've got to step up and take care of your belief systems. It's not handed on a plate to you. None of this was handed on a plate to me or anybody else I know. But if you are here, it means you can do it. And some of you, Alan says, got a lot of work to do to make that happen. For others, it's not going to be as much. It depends where you are at on your spiritual journey. But if you're here, it means you absolutely can. The question is, are you ready to do what you need to do to make that happen? That's all that it is about. So we hope you will ponder, this what we talked about today about whether grief really is mandatory on this journey. At the same time, as I've said, and we'll say again, you need to process your grief. So if it's there, let it come up. Okay, let yourself feel those feelings. Just don't hold the belief that you have to grieve forever to honor your loved one's memory. They don't want that for you. I promise you. They would like you to clear your grief, shift into this new experience and be with them now and feel joy. I know there's some people who feel it would be wrong for them to be happy again. Like, how can I be happy when my loved one is not with me? So if you have that belief, then yeah, you're going to be stuck grieving and you're also handicapping yourself from continue the relationship because you're not willing to join them in their higher frequency, which is love and light and laughter. So if you're not willing to be happy at some point, how are you going to have that relationship through the veil? I know it's hard in the beginning, so I'm not expecting you to be all happy and telling jokes at this point, not at all. But just know that that's possible for you, on the other side of letting go of your human grief, let your physical mind grieve because the physical mind doesn't know that this is possible. So let that part of you grieve, but know that your higher self knows the truth, that you're always going to be connected. You cannot not be connected because the universe is only about oneness. So no one's ever lost to us. No one is off limits to us. No one in non-physical is off limits. Every time you watch any of our videos, and this is why we have an academy that's packed with videos. Anytime you watch any of our videos, we open a door to the other side and your connection will get stronger. That is our promise to you. So watch it as often as you need to. That's it for me. I'm out of here. Bye-bye now. Take care.